Where are you, Zimmerman?
I'm here.
Okay, just say yes or something.
Yes.
Zimmerman. Okay, Morrell, yes. Farnsworth?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Reed? I thought he just walked in. Reed? Okay. Fazzini, I heard.
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
And Fruin, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the one I didn't get was Reed. And I had the chairman, Novosad.
This is Tom, and I'm here as well.
Okay.
And Terry Reed, your mic is muted. Can you hear me okay, Terry? Terry, can you hear me?
Okay, that would be nice. I have everyone else that said hello, and I'm here.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming today. This is Tom Novosad. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Public Building Commission of McLean County here on October 6, 2020. We've already done the roll call and let the record show that we do have a quorum. Item 2 on our agenda is to make introductions and public comments. Introduction-wise, I know Paul Sternett. I see you there, Paul. Welcome to our meeting. Paul is with.
Who did you say? Pardon me. Who did you say?
Paul,
somebody. Paul.
Paul Charnett. SCH.
Charnett. Oh, got it. Thank you.
Okay. I also see Camille is there as well. Welcome,
last
Camille.
Name?
I don't see any other.
She will last name.
Introductions. So we'll just go ahead and move on. Unless someone else is there, please speak up.
Thank you.
All
Who
right.
is that?
This is Camille Rodriguez, County Administrator.
Thank you, Camille.
You're welcome, no problem.
And who was Paul? Did we get Paul?
Paul Charnett from Charnett and Associates.
Okay.
Hey, Jack.
Yes.
I can see folks. I've got video connectivity, so I will back you up here.
Thank you.
So if you don't get it, I'll get it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Item 3 on the agenda is to vote and approve the minutes from our June 2nd, 2020 meeting. You all received an electronic copy of those minutes. Any discussion, comments at this point? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
Who is it?
Bill Zimmerman will move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Second from George, was it? Farnsworth?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Unanimous. Thank you.
All right. Please bear with us. Having a meeting online is not the easiest thing to do, is it?
No, we'll be there someday.
All right, let's go ahead.
This is a good start. Go ahead.
That is our treasurer's report. Jim Mulligan, could you read us, please?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can. Morrell.
Okay, I'll run through this briefly. We got the September 30th, which is our fiscal year-end treasurer's report in front of you. All the bank accounts have been reconciled to the month-end statements except for Heartland Bank, who we have not received the statements as of to date. Just want to kind of go over the interest rates that the PBC is currently getting, and in the current rate environment, they have dropped drastically. Our Bloomington Normal Community Bank accounts are down to 0.09%.
Oh God. Okay.
We have a CD at the Bloomington Normal Community Bank of 1.7 million that is going to mature at the end of the month.
Okay.
And it's currently yielding 1.85%.
Okay.
And the options we've got is that we can go 3 months at 0.3%, or we can go 3 years at 0.35%. So I'm going to recommend that we just take it 3 months at a time and see as we get through this strange environment we're living in, to see if the rates jump up, but I can't see locking it in for a low rate for 3 years.
Okay, and no penalty for doing it early?
That's not, no, we'll just renew it for 3 years,
Okay,
or 3 months, I'm sorry. And
okay,
then at the end of 3 months, we'll have another decision to make, and we'll have a meeting in January, hopefully in person, that we'll be able to review of the options at that point.
okay,
As far as the Chase Bank account, our general checking account, those rates range from 0.01 to 0.05%, which, is not very good, but, there's not too many alternatives out there. Heartland Bank fund where we have our treasuries, our mutual fund, et cetera, it's yielding 1.98%, and the maturities are laddered out that they're going to mature between January of 21 through April of 23. As far as the other assets on the balance sheet, we have our first capital improvement agreement that we are receiving $60,000 a year, of which 15 is from the city of Bloomington and 45 is from the county. As of September 30th, we have received the city's 15,000, but the county usually remits that to us in November or December.
okay,
We got the second capital improvement for $430,000. We got our first payment coming from the county in the next month or so. And as far as the bonds, we have the series 2010 and 2013 bond payments that are due on November 1st. And if you look on page 13 of the Treasurer's report, the principal and interest are detailed on the bottom 3 items on that. So the section 2013, there's 205,000 we're paying down.
yes,
2010, 845, and series 2015, which is December 31st, was 1.135 million in principal. If you look at page 13 again, that's the disbursements that you'll need to approve. We've made some payments since our last meeting, of which, have all been previously approved at prior meetings. We paid the prior year audit fee of $11,000. We paid some of our insurance premiums for $41,000. We submitted the first 6 months of O&M to the county of 1.6 million approximately. We have not submitted August and September yet because we're still awaiting the county's second installment from the real estate taxes. We have received the city's payment in full for the year. The October disbursements, the Heartland Bank and the Bloomington Normal Community Bank, those are transfers to the debt service accounts. So when the bonds, the paying agent, which is Heartland Bank, when they transfer the money to them prior to those due dates. And other than that, that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
Robert, do we need any motion on this? Robert?
Jack, this is Tom. We're still in a discussion phase right now, and
Okay.
we will need a motion in a minute, but I want to open up for any discussion or comments at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Any questions for Jim? Okay, now, Jack, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Harris moves to approve.
Okay, Harris-
Fazzini, second.
Rob Fazzini, second.
Okay,
I'm
thank
going
you.
to ask Robert Porter to do a roll call since he can see the video of people here, and then you will ask those on call to signify. Robert?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morrell,
Yes,
Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin.
Bruin?
He's muted, Jack.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's all right. That's all right. Mr. Fazzini?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Let's move on to old business. And first item there is discussion of improvements to the old courthouse. And to this, I yield to Camille and Mr. Sarnett.
Thank you, Mr. Novosad. And thank you for providing us the opportunity to update you on improvements. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Charnett at this time. His firm has been serving to support McLean County government and the PBC in the architectural drawings and the RFP for the process of roof replacement. Mr. Charnett, would you guide us through the process?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Camille. Thank you very much, commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to present some of the information and what we are working on so diligently to try and get a new roof on this thing as soon as possible. I'd like to update you a little bit on the process, but before I do that, I'd like to just show you a few photos. I don't know if we can share screen or how there's a way to do that. On this, it says here, I have to ask the organizer to make me a presenter. If that's possible, I can share the screen.
He is working on that right now with some clicks of a button, Mr. Charnett. So we should be able, hopefully, to make that happen.
All right, here we go. Hopefully you can kind of see a little bit of what's on my screen.
Well, I can hear it.
So should be popping up now. It says that you can, but if you can't, let me know. What we're looking at here, we are looking over the northwest corner, or excuse me, southeast corner.
Okay.
Of the roof, and these are some of the patches that were placed a few months ago. Since then, they've blown off. So, they've already been replaced. You can see some of the condition of the roof. That these are rather large patches that are happening here. It is not at all a small project. And you can see some of the crazing that's happening. That's what this cracking is called. That's running up and down some of these streets, the ridge of the roof. That is an indication of failure of the substrate. So we're seeing a lot of damage on the roof, and it's only going to continue to get worse. I know that you already know that, hey, the roof is in need of replacement, but I really want to show you that these areas that we're talking about, I think the county has worked very hard, very diligently in trying to repair these as much as possible and keep up with the maintenance of this thing. But there's only so much you can do before you have to replace it. And the other reason I want to show you some of this is just the intricacy of this roof. We met on Friday. We had a walkthrough with the bidders. There are 3 interested bidders currently, and we expect to receive bids on the 8th and open them thereafter. So we should know exactly how much this thing costs and where to go from there. What I would say is that they all believe that this is an expensive roof. There's not a great easy thing about any of it. Access to the site is difficult because the building is surrounded on 4 sides with the grassy area, which is elevated from the sidewalk level. We can't put too much pressure on some of those because they're covering sewer mains. We can't put so much pressure far or closer to the building because there are stairways in the way. There are some challenges for access. So they're acknowledging that there will have to be a crane used for pretty much the entire process, as well as an external stair, because they can't bring materials in through the rest of the building. So it creates a little bit of challenge. So access is one challenge. The other challenge that you have is that there are some interesting, beautiful details. This is a really phenomenal gem that we have, and we're doing everything we can to maintain it. But I would like to point out just a few kind of important details. The newels and the balustrade that's happening around here, I don't know if you can see my mouse on screen. Might be able to draw on here and just kind of circle around. This area right here, underneath this, there is a scupper or a drain that allows for the roof to take in water from the gutter. There's a limestone gutter that surrounds this whole thing. The reason that this is a particular challenge is that scupper, at least one of them has totally failed. And so in dealing with the replacement on this, we have to get into a little bit of detail here, which I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you some drawings of what we're trying to achieve. So this is the new scupper detail that we're talking about. There's a pretty hefty amount of difficulty in dealing with this. The original details have to be modified as we work on this. So we have to cut it a little bit into the limestone, into the clay tile roof deck. It's a little bit more involved. And so the roofers are all standing there on Friday looking at me going, well, you got yourself an inexpensive project, right? No. The anticipation here is that we're doing a 30-year roof warranty. We expect that it will last longer than that. We're hoping to get 40, 50, maybe even 60 years out of this roof. However, the manufacturers will only warrant it for 30. In order to do so, there are certain detail requirements that we've had to meet. And because it's a unique structure, we also have to treat these things in a way that is historically sensitive, particularly as we look at some of the outside and how we treat the balustrade. We have a little bit of copper flashing because it's apropos for the building period. And ordinarily today we would use an aluminum flashing instead. It adds a minimal amount of expense to the thing, but it's important to try and keep that aesthetic to the public. Will you be able to see it from the street? Well, my building is right across the street, so yes, I can say you will see it. I'm getting a little bit into detail here, but we have had some addendum come out, or 2 addenda to date, and we expect that all the bidders are made aware of all of those, and we should have some very competitive numbers coming in on Thursday. I'd open it up for any kind of questions anybody might have on this.
This is Tom Novosad. First off, I couldn't see any of your presentation, the visuals. I don't know if others could see it or not. Scott, I don't know if you're still there, but my screen just turned into kind of a ticker tape with small icons. So I don't know if we can go back to the regular screen or not. Scott, are you there?
If Paul stops screen sharing, we'll go back to all the being able to see everyone.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and stop screen sharing. I apologize if everybody couldn't see me.
Well, maybe I'm the only one. I'm.
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
Well, that was a very fruitful exercise then. So.
Plus, we have several people on the phone anyway. So, can we go back to the regular screen, Scott?
We're back to the regular screen.
Paul, I'd be interested in knowing who your 3 bidders are.
Sure. Right now we have Western Specialty Contractors. They took over in Champaign. They're one of the larger groups in Champaign. We have Union Roofing, been around here for 90 years. And the last one is out of Springfield. That is Henson Robinson. All of Henson Robinson and Union have worked on a lot of public buildings around here. I've dealt with both Henson and Union in the past on many municipal projects. They've always done a good job. I have not dealt with Western Specialty before, but they do come with high recommendations.
Again, out of interest, Paul, was there any interest out of Kryling, out of Peoria?
No, we announced it to everybody that we could. The unions were made aware. Everyone was made aware as much as we could, and the only 3 that were in attendance for the mandatory pre-bid last week were those.
Thank you.
This
Mr.
is Tom
Short,
Novus- this
Mr.
is Tom
Shortnett.
Novus again, is 450,000 has been kicked around as an estimate for this project. Does that still hold true, or what is your current estimate on the work?
So we've held off on putting an estimate on this, recognizing the historic details are very, very difficult to calculate and how much labor is going into them. I would expect it to be north of where you have right now. I would be surprised if it came under 450.
Paul, George Farnsworth here. Looking at your proposal, I see an awful lot of historical presentation paperwork and, excuse me, entanglements with requirements in that arena. What's that doing to this project and how you're proceeding with it? It looks like a lot of time and opportunity for slow ups and so forth in dealing with the bureaucracies.
When you say historic preservation and some of the challenges, are you just referring to some of the details, or are you referring to any of the challenges in dealing with commissions or the like?
All the above.
Well, I'm on the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission, so we don't have any problem with it. As far as any,
how about the state and what reviews are required, and are you through those, and what's coming?
There are no additional reviews required from a historic perspective. So we're good as far as a timeline. The challenge that we have for this is simply when we can install the work. There are difficult details on this particular project that are just simply unique to the building. Limestone gutters don't exist on 99% of buildings around here, as you well know. We don't anticipate that they're going to have an easy time getting those scuppers rebuilt, for instance. Those are going to take some serious pieces of machinery to try and get them chunked out, and a little bit of labor and some time to get it done. The clay tile roof deck means that they're limited on how much they can store on the roof at any time. So it adds to the cost because you can only put so much on the roof before you end up causing that thing to break down. And we are concerned about the brittleness of the roof. So from a historic perspective, there's a lot of overlay that adds to the cost in this process. But from a time standpoint, I don't think it's really adding much. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I just saw a snarl of requirements in there. Is this a good time to start this? I'm talking seasonally.
Well, I think that's a very good point. On Friday, the bidders suggested that starting in spring would be more cost effective, simply because they're going to have a crane out there, and they're going to have a crane out there for the duration of the project. The later or the more contiguous the construction phase will be, the more cost effective the crane will be. So that's what they're really hoping for in this process. However, there are pieces that we simply need to get done. And there are at least some patching pieces that could be done now. They've suggested that could we try this patch or that patch or whatever. None of it is going to be particularly successful until you replace it, because nothing sticks to that roof system.
How have you handled weather delay and contingencies in the schedule?
So as far as weather delays, they're only taking off as much as they can put back in a day. So the intent is that anytime they're out on site, they are bringing up enough material, replacing enough material, and disposing of all the material that they're working with only for that day. In addition to that, we also have a secondary roof membrane. So let's say you get caught in the middle of a storm coming in, and you've only got a half day of work that you're able to accomplish. Underneath all of this is what's known as what Firestone calls a V-force vapor barrier, but it's a bituminous membrane that acts as a temporary roofing system. So we have a sort of a roof system, and then we also have the roof system that goes on top of that. That's the permanent roof system.
Last question for me is how you're handling safety requirements inside and outside the building.
Yeah, so there are tie-off points all around the roof. We do have a balustrade, and the contractors, more than anything, are nervous about the gutters. But they understand that the only way they're going to be able to access those gutters is using a man lift on the exterior. Hopefully I answered your questions, Mr. Farnsworth.
You did. Wow, this is quite a project.
It is. It is, and it is mildly complex. It's deceptively complex. I have 5 sheets of drawings and a spec book that's, maybe 150 pages, but the work that's required is a lot more than that.
Well, speaking along those lines, this is Tom Novosad. Your fee, and we're going to be acting on your fee here in a little bit on another item. I assume you are comfortable with your fee, considering the complexity of this project and scope.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We've taken into account, or we knew what we were getting into, is what I should say. We had the opportunity to review the project to make sure that we understood the details. This is not exactly new for us. We've done this kind of work elsewhere. Like I said, I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission, so I understand a lot of these details, and I review them frequently with clients who are coming in on a regular basis to say, okay, well, I've got this tricky sort of thing. Well, none of that is particularly new. The only thing that is sort of novel on this are the gutters and downspouts. That's a very, very strange way to make it work. It's not that uncommon for a building of this age to want to use an internal gutter system, but most of the time they've been converted, and it's not really feasible to do on this project. So that's why it hasn't been converted. So yeah, that's the real complexity on it. And we did spend quite a bit of time to it, but I don't feel like we've spent anything that was not, or spent time that was not commensurate with the fee. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about it, though.
Okay. And I assume that Mr. Coos is very comfortable with the scope of work and the details and drawings, et cetera?
Yes, we've kept the museum in the loop whenever we could, gave them an update on the project and let them know about how we were going to treat these things in the process. Ms. Emig is also kept abreast of that.
Okay, great.
Hello, this is Rob Fazzini.
Hi, Rob.
Julie Emig presented much of what you just did to our executive committee and is quite satisfied with how things are moving along. So from the museum standpoint.
Good.
Thank you.
Good to know. Thank you, Rob. Okay, any further
Paul, I've got
discussion?
one more question. Does the RFP deal only with the roof and the guttering system, or does it take care of some of the interior damage?
We elected to do this in kind of 2 parts. The interior damage, so the plaster component was not part of all of this work, knowing that we had no idea how far down the rabbit hole some of these downspout pieces would be damaged. So we are dealing with that as we move forward. The complexity of that part of the process is also something that can be dealt with during winter months. So we wanted to leave that as being its own piece. So the exterior can be redeveloped and independently of everything that's happening on the interior. So right now, the only thing that's being touched on the downspouts is that top elbow, as it were, and where it touches the roof. Other than that, the rest of it is remaining, and we're not dealing with any of the plaster repair.
I think that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions, comments, discussion?
If I could,
Yes.
Tom?
Sure.
Mr. Charnett, perhaps because some of our commissioners did not see the drawings for some reason, I actually was able to. Maybe after this meeting, you can email me those slides you attempted to share, and I can just email them to our members so they can see the drawings that way. Would that work?
You know, I could probably do you one better. I have a link that has all of this already. It's what the bidders are also seeing. So you can review all of the bid documents and all of the drawings, project manual, as well as the photos that we've put out. So that's all I was using for this presentation, kind of rolling through them. So you are certainly welcome to, and I will send that out to you, and I assume that you can distribute that to the rest of the commission.
Yeah, I sure will, and that would be appreciated. And then I wanted to ask you a question, Mr. Charnett, in terms of your fee, which, as our chairman indicated, we'll take up in a minute. But is your fee, did you calculate that based on a percentage of an overall project budget, or estimated hours, or how did you? Can you speak to us as to how you calculated your fee in this project?
Sure. So my proposal is based on the amount of time that it takes me to produce these documents and to put all of that together. So what I've done in our proposal, and I'm not sure what you're going to be reviewing here. Maybe that's just the first payment. We are issuing, or we just issued, a 90% payment for the construction documents, which means we've completed all of the construction documents. There's still bidding and negotiation, which is what's happening right now, as well as construction administration, which will happen during the construction phase. I'll go out on site. There are submittals that'll come to us that I'll have to review. There are miscellaneous details or things that when we open it up, you go, oh my gosh, what have we gotten ourselves into? Hopefully not. We believe we've done our homework on all of this. But there are inevitably things that end up happening, which we always recommend that project contingency be maintained on projects like this. So anyway, I say all that to say that our fee, you will see another bill that comes from us, but we're very comfortable with our total fee because that's the number of hours that we believe we're spending on it. Now, I would add the one component that is not included in our proposal is we did not know how far we needed to take plaster repair because we didn't know what we were going to get into until we started cutting it out. So that piece is done as an hourly kind of thing. Right now, we have not gotten into any of it, so I couldn't tell you or give you an estimate of what that would take. All I have done is I've done a walkthrough with the museum for the damaged plaster, reviewed the extent of it, and we know where it's coming from. However, in order to totally address it, we don't know what we'll have to cut out yet.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any further comments, discussion for Mr. Charnett? Thank you, Paul. We appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be of service to the county and to the commission, and look forward to seeing this thing complete with a brand new roof and beautiful, and everybody can leave it for the next however many years and we'll be happy.
You bet. Thanks again, Paul. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next item, is there a way that we can get back to the original screen? Are we still in the presentation screen? Scott, are you there?
This is Craig from IT. We are in the original screen.
That's what I'm seeing.
All right, I'm just seeing a ticker tape here. How do I get out of that?
Not familiar with that, something. That might be.
I'm already on that.
For what it's worth, I had no audio, so I just went and restarted everything.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next item then. That would be item 5B, and that's a discussion and vote on to approve the third capital improvement agreement or improvement to the old courthouse. Robert, you can take a lead on this, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I have distributed to you all a project memorandum put together by Mr. Charnett. That project memorandum was delivered by Mr. Charnett to the county back in June as a part of his engagement with McLean County to serve as architect for the renovation to the old courthouse's roof, gutter system, as well as any and all interior plaster damage repair. Actually, I take that out. It does not include the plaster damage repair, as Mr. Charnett just said. So it's just roof and drain. On that memorandum is a proposed architect fee in the amount of $28,800. Within the last month, Ms. Rodriguez made a request of us that we essentially lend the county that sum now in order to pay Mr. Charnett's initial invoices. What we anticipate doing is at the point in time in which bids come back, those numbers are reviewed, and an eventual contract is entered into for the actual repair and renovation work, that we would come back and amend this third capital agreement to include the full amount. In other words, Mr. Charnett's fee plus the actual cost of the contract. This third capital improvement agreement in form is identical to the previous two capital improvement agreements that we've entered into with the county. As a reminder, we several years ago entered into a $600,000 capital improvement agreement with the county to repair and replace the roofs on the government center and the juvenile detention center. And more recently, we entered into an approximately $430,000 capital improvement agreement with the county to replace both elevators at 200 West Front Street. And so the form of the agreement is that these are loans of 10 years in duration, typically to be repaid beginning the year following the agreement's approval. And at no interest. So in this case, the agreement would stand at $2,880 a year until it's subsequently amended. Is the intention. So I'm happy to answer questions or concerns about that if anyone has them. But that is what the county has asked us to consider today.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the third capital improvement agreement as Robert Porter has just outlined?
So moved.
I'll make the motion.
Didn't quite catch that. Who made the original motion?
Terry made the motion. Is there
Second?
I'll second. Farnsworth.
Okay.
Robert, will you take a roll call?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morrell, Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzini,
Yes.
and Chairman Novosad.
Thank you, Robert. Motion carried. Let's move on to the next item of business. That's our new business. And we have listed the report of the county administrator. And first item would be discussion of any future building projects. Camille?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Novosad. It's really a perfect time of year to be entering into this discussion. Last Thursday, the property committee of the McLean County Board met, and staff and I presented a recommended budget relative to facilities and maintenance, as well as Parks and Rec. Those are two of the departments that report to that committee, but also just an overview only of our 5-year capital improvement plan. I'm assuming that this commission, though, wants to know of any larger projects that would affect any changes to buildings or creation of new buildings therein. I can discuss anything in the capital improvement plan should you wish, but perhaps one of the only larger projects that possibly could be on the horizon for next year would be building a new animal control department building. The existing building, while it does provide for some of the needs of that department, has several flaws, and it is in a location as well that is not necessarily conducive to the public visiting the building quite easily and adopting pets. And so I know that I'm sure you wish for more specifics, but at this point, I'm being guarded with how much optimism I can share in whether or not that would actually be a project, because the animal control shelter, or the department, I should say, may or may not have some trusts that are going to share some of their fortune with that department, and that may be specifically as well for a large capital improvement project, but we don't have specifics on that. But I will forecast and say that that is one of the larger projects that could be on our horizon, at least in the planning phases during the upcoming year. We realize that there's more to this project than simply just building the right building. It's about location, and it's about the animal control department's relationship with some of the municipalities that utilize it for animal control services under contract, as well as our relationships perhaps with other counties that also rely on the McLean County Animal Control Department. So that's a very quick overview. I'm being very brief, but that could be one of the large projects on the horizon for county administration staff and the staff at the Animal Control Department. Mr. Novosad, did you want me to do any overview of our 5-year capital improvement plan at all? I wasn't sure. It is obviously, before you answer, still a recommended plan. None of the budget for the entirety of McLean County government, nor the capital improvement plan is official until when and if the McLean County Board approves it at the November County Board meeting. So at this point, we're still entering into preliminary discussions with each oversight committee of their respective budgets, which embed inside them any of these capital improvement recommended projects that are listed within our improvement plan.
I think we only are interested in anything that you're comfortable sharing with us at this time. We fully realize that anything is subject to, approvals and long-range planning. So anything in that 5-year plan that you feel comfortable sharing, I think we'd be interested in hearing.
Well, certainly. I'm happy to share. Obviously, the museum roof is in that plan. Another project that's in very preliminary stages. You've heard me make mention of it before. It has been discussed in property committee meetings, is the Fairview building, and possibly creating what we are affectionately calling senior apartments, using an update of the existing build and then new construction next to the Fairview building. That is all still very preliminary with a local partner, but if you've driven by and seen some activity, there's a lot of folks visiting the building. We had a topographical survey done as well as an appraisal. So we're moving towards some possibilities in that realm, and I'm comfortable at least sharing that much information. And of course, this is all still very preliminary, also based on our partners' ability to obtain housing tax credits and get all the paperwork in place to do the work that they wish to do in that regard. Other improvements throughout the county are probably not surprises. Chiller replacements, boiler replacements, driveway reconstruction work, some repaving of parking lots. Those are all part and parcel of this plan, as well as some safety and security measures for our Law and Justice Center relative to the installation of cameras and intercom systems. And then down the road, some more work in exterior restoration of the Law and Justice Center. So some of those are to be hopefully approved for year one, but some a little farther out. And so really high level, Mr. Novosad, but that's some of what we're presenting to each of the committees this week, and then a little bit into later in October and early November, until we actually hopefully have a solid plan that's approved by the McLean County Board.
Super, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think last time you even mentioned elevators. Is that something you're still looking at too? Overview of elevators?
Thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted you. We are always looking at opportunities we have to obviously have a strong maintenance schedule, but a replacement schedule. I did not write that into this particular capital improvement plan, but along with the property committee and my staff, we are looking at this improvement plan to be a living document. And we just, ahead of its publication in draft form, we did not have time to implement a robust replacement schedule. Plus, we knew that we had some large projects like the museum roof and then the subsequent plaster restoration. So we have to take a look at what we can afford. Safety is obviously our most important concern, though. And so we may come back to revise the plan as it stands to add those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, further discussion with Camille on this? Okay, hearing none, why don't we move to the next item on the agenda there, and that is status report on operation and maintenance of Public Building Commission on facilities.
Thank you. If it pleases the commission, I know we didn't roll call him in, but Mr. Tim Doherty, who is the Director of Facilities, is in the room here at the Government Center with me. And if it pleases Mr. Novosad and the commission, he could approach the podium. He would be the best to give the status report on operations and maintenance since the last time we met earlier this summer. Is that okay, Mr. Novosad?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Camille.
Mr.
He
Doherty.
got booted out. If they
Oh.
want to see him, he'll need.
Actually, he's going to sit in my spot because our computer over there booted him out. So come on and have a seat.
All right.
Thank you.
Hello, Tim. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Can you see me all right? Get down here.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having the pleasure. I'll try to keep this brief. I just want to let you know that I've got 4 of our buildings on schedule for some much needed electrical maintenance and cleaning and testing. And those buildings would be the Health Department, the Government Center, the Juvenile Detention Center, and Metcom. We've already talked about the Health Department elevator project. I'm pleased to inform you that project is completed on schedule, in budget, and it was very successful. The Law and Justice Center, I've got 1 elevator that had a catastrophic failure shortly after the annual testing. And this week we're expecting the final part to come in so Kone Elevator could put that elevator back in service. Another project I've got going on in the Law and Justice Center is the morgue cooler and freezer, and that project's a good 95% complete. We're just finishing up some details now, and it possibly could be online by the end of the week. Some miscellaneous, one other miscellaneous thing at the Law and Justice Center, we replaced a dock plate a week ago. This was an original dock plate back to 2004, I believe. It was very rusty and getting to be a dangerous thing to operate. So that was replaced. Out at JDC, this summer we had a compressor failure in the only water chiller out there for air conditioning purposes. We did replace that chiller to get us through this summer with the expectations of replacing that chiller next spring. We experienced a water heating coil failure, a freeze rupture last February. That coil, replacement coil, we brazed up the coil loops and got through the winter, and we ordered a new coil, and that coil is going to be installed tomorrow. Here at the Government Center, there's been not so much activity, but we did replace a pneumatic air dryer for HVAC temperature controls. At the animal shelter, I am meeting with a contractor Thursday morning to look at coating that roof. We've had about 3 prominent leaks on that metal roof, and we're looking at just get the cost to coat that. That's about all I have for you, gentlemen. Any questions?
Thank you, Tim.
You're
Sounds like a lot going on.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Appreciate you visiting with us. Thank you very much. All right, anything further on those items? Anything further from you, Camille? Anything you want to add, or?
I do not have anything further. Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next item, item 6B, and that's the discussion and vote to approve invoices from the Farnsworth Group. There are 3 invoices there, as you notice in your agenda. You received copies of those via email from Robert. Commissioning invoice for $5,727.25. A June 10th, 2020 commissioning and landscape design invoice for $4,964.25. And an August 4th, 2020 invoice for $8,400 for additional set of drawings. You've all received copies of those. Any further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve all 3 invoices as indicated?
Harris moves to approve.
And a second?
Zimmerman will second.
All right, roll call, Robert, please.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morrell, Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzini,
Yes.
Chairman Novosad.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Motion carried. We'll go ahead and approve all 3 of those invoices. Let's move on to the next item. This is 6C, discussion and vote on approving reimbursement to McLean County for final FF&E expenditures of $68,095.81. You all received a copy, an email copy of those particular items. Any further questions, discussion at this point? Robert, I know you've taken a look a little bit at the total cost and the budget. You could enlighten us on that, please.
Certainly. So as Chairman Novosad indicated, this is the county's final FF&E expenditures. It's a lot of medical items and it's a lot of miscellaneous items. This was provided to us by Assistant County Administrator Kathy Dreyer a few weeks ago. At the beginning of this project, when we entered into our contract with River City in April of 2017, which is hard to believe it's been that long, we had set aside $400,000 for FF&E expenditures. That was at the time thought to be more than what we would end up utilizing. And indeed, we have used less than that amount. With this, inclusive of this final invoice, we will have spent $332,959.66 on furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. So, 80% of the FF&E budget, give or take.
Thank you, Robert. Any discussion, questions? You've all received a copy, I believe, of the detailed breakdown of the items that we're planning. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move. Reed.
And second?
Harris, second.
All right, roll call, please. Robert?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morel, Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzini,
Yes.
and Chairman Novosad.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. It brings us to our item here on the item 6, discussion of other business. And I know, Robert, you've got a couple items for us there if you board.
Sure. I guess 2 items that are related essentially, and that is to thank McLean County and our partners at the county. Thank you to Camille Rodriguez and all of her team for assisting us these past 2 meetings in holding these virtual meetings. I think I speak for all of us when I say I hope we can be in a room next year. But I think this has worked relatively well, and that's been through the help of Camille and the gentlemen on this call as well, Craig and Scott. So a big thank you there. We appreciate your help and the partnership we have. Towards that end, the county has been very kind to decide to host a website for us. The website is pretty bare boned, and it's to essentially just ensure that we can be as transparent as possible to the public. So our minutes and agendas are published to the site. It's it can be found on basically the county board's website under their committees link. But that is a way for again for those to hopefully find information that way should they seek it in a more accessible manner. And I know I've corresponded quite a bit with Craig Nelson about that. He's been super to work with. Put something up that would take me a year in about 5 minutes. So we appreciate that help as well. I just wanted to make you all aware that is now out there.
And fairly simple to get to, Robert, wouldn't you agree? And
yeah, it's like I say, when you go to McLeanCountyIL.gov, it's essentially linked to the county board's website under their committees tab. So I think it's pretty easy to find and pretty straightforward to use.
great. And you have populated the site with many of our past years of agendas and meeting minutes and things of that nature. And then anything upcoming, obviously you publish the agendas there as well as in public locations.
Yeah, now that we do have the website, we're obligated under law to also post our notices there. And as always, the county helps us in the past. They've always helped us in the past and they help us now. So now I send 2 emails instead of, thanking someone for posting to a bulletin board. I'm thanking for the bulletin board post and also for uploading to the website.
Oh, great. That's a great addition. And I also echo your comments to the county. Thank you for your help, not only with the website, but also in hosting these meetings. So Camille, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
please pass along our thanks to your entire team.
Will do.
All right. Any other business from the commissioners? Okay, well, that moves us into our last item, which is to adjourn sine die, if I recall my high school Latin appropriately, to reconvene and reorganize. So we have a second meeting to undergo here in just a minute. Robert, do we have to call a roll call on this as well? Or not a roll call, but a call for a vote?
Yes, if we can do a motion, second, and then just a voice vote.
Okay, can I have a motion
Harris
to?
moves to adjourn.
Okay, in a second.
Schultz.
Schultz seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. All right, let's immediately move into the next portion of our agenda. That is our annual reorganization meeting. So I'd like to go ahead and call to order the reorganization meeting of Public Building Commission here on October 6, 2020. Roll call the commissioners.
Sure. Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes, here.
Mr. Morrell, Mr. Farnsworth,
Here.
Mr. Schultz,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Present.
Mr. Reed,
Here.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
and Mr. Fazzini,
Here.
and Chairman Novosad.
Here. Thank you, Robert. Thank you all. Second item on our agenda is introduction of public comment. I don't know that we have any new members here, at least what I can see. Anybody announce if they are here? Hearing none, let's go ahead and move on to item 3 of the agenda, which is a consent agenda. So I'm not going to take a lot of time reading through each item here, but rather you have a copy of this. You all received an email copy of our agenda for the reorganization meeting. First item there, item A, is to vote on election of officers. Pleased to say that everyone has agreed, who has been serving an officer in the past year has agreed to serve again next year. Do I have any discussion, questions? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the election of
Harris
officers?
moves.
Jack Harris moves. Second.
Fazzini seconds. At the same
Second.
compensation level, though.
Yep, same compensation level.
Duly noted.
All right. We can just do this as a consent
Do
vote,
voice
right,
vote.
Robert?
Yep.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, I have to ask. Well, we already have the motion, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign? Great, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item on consent agenda, and that's the insurance coverage and vote to ratify obtaining insurance policies for the 2020-2021 policy year. And you have in your information a listing of each of the policies. I know Robert's got a little more information on the total overall cost and any comparison to previous years. Robert, could you add a little bit to that?
Yes. Our in the first 4 items here, the public officials liability, umbrella policy, the business auto policy, and then the GL policy combined, that is a approximately $2,500 increase over last year. The biggest driver there was our public officials liability policy, which came in at $1,504 over. the other policies were just a marginal increase. The business auto policy is the same as last year, and then the costs of the surety bonds have not changed. The past couple of years, we've actually seen annual decreases on what we've paid year for year on insurance, which is a little unusual. The increase in cost on the public officials liability policy was the result of essentially of us being audited by the carrier for the first time for that policy, and it is taking into account some older litigation, in essence, litigation that arose out of the Law and Justice Center a few years ago. So that was the explanation for that cost there.
Was that litigation that affected us, Robert, or what was the litigation?
That was there was a wrongful death suit that occurred in the Law and Justice Center back in 2015.
Okay.
Commission was a party to that for a couple of years, long enough to be picked up in an audit by Greenwich, which is our public officials liability carrier.
That was the elevator case, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
In securing these bids for insurance through R.W. Gibson, they do farm these out for proposal, or is that correct, Robert? They look at several different companies and.
Yeah, we've historically used Bob Gibson as our broker, and he serves as a broker and goes out and gets quotes. We've been pretty steady with Columbia Insurance for our major policies. And at least from my vantage point, Columbia has always been very, very, very good to work with when we've needed them. Some of the other policies, have changed. The umbrella has changed in the past. We had a different carrier for our public officials liability the very first year we carried public officials liability. And that's largely been driven by, the different bids and who's most competitive for what they're offering. But in terms of our largest policy, our GL policy, that has been with Columbia for some time.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the insurance coverages as before mentioned?
Fazzini, yes, approve. Make a motion.
Make a motion. I hear a second.
Harris, second.
Jack Harris, second. Okay, Robert, would you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morrell, Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzini,
Yes.
and Chairman Novosad.
Yes. Thank you, Robert, for the overview, and motion carried. Item C on our consent agenda is the selection of depositories. We have, 4 areas: reselection of PNC Bank, reselection of JP Morgan Chase, reselection of Heartland Bank and Trust, and reselection of Jim, Robert, anything to add on these depositories?
This is just an annual requirement in our bylaws that we redesignate the banking institutions that we keep our funds. Heartland Bank and Morton Community Bank are both banks that we have bond proceeds at. Chase is our operations account, and The PNC account, at some point, we probably need to look at if it makes sense to still have that. That's kind of a historical anachronism. But this is more just kind of annual bookkeeping requirements.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
Zimmerman, so move.
Bill Zimmerman moves, second.
I'll second.
Terry Reed, second. Roll call, Robert?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morrell, Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Robert, am I able to vote on this?
no. Thank you.
Then I will abstain.
So just for the record, thank you, Dave. For the record, as an employee of Morgan Community Bank, Dave Schultz is abstaining. Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzini,
Yes.
Chairman Novosad.
Yes. Motion carried. Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4 is report on the Public Building Commission's continuing disclosure undertaking compliance. So Robert, I'll leave that in your hands.
Sure, and I will make this brief. Back in 2015, the commission adopted a bond underwriting and continuing disclosure undertaking policy. We are required by the terms of our official statements that are associated with our bond issues to post our annual audited financial statements to a online repository that's maintained by the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is a requirement that we started to have to do in 2013. As our previous underwriters, First Mid-State, as a part of their engagement, handles this function for us, and as a part of our underwriting and CDU policy, kind of memorialize this part of our annual meeting to ensure that First Mid-State is keeping us in compliance, and they continue to do that. And what is in your member packets are screenshots from those Securities and Exchange Commission depository websites for all of our outstanding bond issues, the 2010 and 2013 refunding bond issues, and then our more recent 2015 bond issue. And our audited financial statements were timely posted to all of those, as were McLean counties. So we are in compliance with our official statements and our pertinent securities regulations.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions, further discussion? Okay, thank you. Item 4A, is that same item, Robert? You need to add anything on that?
Yes. No, that's the same item.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and move on to the next item, item 5, and that's post-issuance compliance and tax matters report, Series 2015 revenue bond issue. Robert?
We are we're asked for 20 years after a bond issue, which is the statute of limitations on a IRS audit, to essentially have in our file an attestation that we are not running afoul of any arbitrage or pledge laws regarding our 2015 bond issue. And I can, so what the report indicates essentially is that we continue to maintain all pertinent documents relative to that bond issue, that we are not running afoul of arbitrage regulations, in that we have less than 5% of the original proceeds of that bond issue still remaining, and none of those bond proceeds are earning a yield of greater than 3.5%. Like the previous item, this is just something we decided to incorporate into our annual meetings to ensure that we remain in compliance with, in this case, with pertinent tax laws.
Thank you, Robert. Any further questions, comments? Well, thank you for keeping us compliant. Things have become so complicated in these days. So we appreciate your efforts, Robert. Item 6 of our consent agenda is to retain legal counsel, treasurer, and auditor for the 2021 fiscal year. Any further discussion, questions, comments?
The only thing I would like to, review is the auditor. I talked to Don Carlson at MCK, formerly Solaski and Webb, that has performed our audit for the last several years. And she is proposing that they conduct our September 30th, 2020 audit for the same fee as they have for the previous several years. So I would recommend just retaining the same auditor at this time.
Thank you, Jim. I would like to add that I've just been so very pleased with our legal counsel, our treasurer, and our auditor for not only this current year, but previous years as well. Any further comments, discussion?
Tom, this is Jim.
Yeah, Jim.
I would agree with all of that, and I'm a newer member here, but I'm always a big proponent for considering the shift in auditors from time to time. I don't know how long Dawn and her firm have done it. I don't have any reason to suggest differently right now, but I think you do need to look at that occasionally. So maybe tuck that away for a future discussion. How many years have they been doing it, Jim? Do you know?
As long as I have been treasurer, they have been, which is 4 or 5 years, and I'm not sure how many years prior to that.
Yeah.
But this past year, they merged with, they used to be Solaski and Webb, obviously, and they merged with MCK out of Decatur. So we really did have a fresh set of eyes looking at the audit this past year. And, so I feel comfortable that, maybe it's something we look at maybe next year or the year down the road. But, based on conversations I had last year when we were considering maybe sending out RFPs, et cetera, that, there's nobody really local except maybe Clifton Larson here in town that performs government audits. And, I think it's always been the commission's, belief to keep things local if possible. And, based on my conversations with CLA, they would be considerably more, and they would not be staffed out of the Bloomington normal office here. That's would come out of Peoria or Champaign. So, that's something we can take a look at next summer if we want to send out RFPs and, see what kind of interest we get. It would be up to the commission to, direct me to do that.
Yeah, I'm very, very comfortable. I appreciate your explanation. And so I'm all in favor of proceeding.
Maybe anybody would do it, but I have to say over the last couple of years, they've been very good about sending someone to our commission meeting to walk through their audit with us and explain it to us. So I think they've done a really great job over the past couple of years. So
I concur.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Yes, thank you, Jim. We appreciate, always wanting to take a look at outside. And I know Jim Mulligan has looked at in the past, and it's always something we should continue to look at. Just make sure that, particularly in the audit area, it's something we want to make sure that everything is above board and very transparent. So thank you for your comments. Any further discussion, comments on retaining? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
Harris moves to approve.
Jack Harris. Second. Second is George?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Would you do a roll call?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Morel, Mr. Farnsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Fruin,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzini.
Yes.
And Chairman Nova said yes.
Yes, and Chairman Novosad.
That's all right.
Not used to calling roll.
That brings us to our last item, which is to adjourn. Any further items of discussion, anything anyone want to bring up at this point?
I would. This is Harris again. I'd like to congratulate all the officers on being reelected, but more importantly, thanking all of you folks for be willing to serve this group. It's a pleasure to work with all of you.
Thank you, Jack. Very well said. I appreciate that. And I echo the same sentiment. You all have been a great group to work with. I look forward to our meetings. Hopefully we can get together next time in person. So, I just really treasure the relationships we built up here. It's just a good group. It's been interesting work. I know in talking to some of you, you all share the same feelings. So thank you again. Anything further? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Hey, everyone, stay safe out there and healthy. Don't forget to vote.